Raising Dion. I hate to really have to criticize this show and rip it to pieces, but I really feel that if I don't be honest about this show, then we're going to continue to get shows like Raising Dion. Despite the fact that I want to see more black superheroes on television, my biggest problem is that Raising Dion isn't the type of black superhero show that I want to see on television. Hi, my name is IDK Brevi, and on my channel, I watch things so you don't have to. Today, I will be reviewing Raising Dion. So, Raising Dion is a show that is on Netflix, like the many other superhero shows that are on Netflix that probably will get canceled within a year because that's how Netflix does with a lot of these superhero shows. Raising Dion, we follow a young boy who's named Dion, who's in elementary school, and he's got some type of mystical powers. He's like a Jean Grey, for lack of better terms. And his mom is a single mother who has to raise her son. Pretty simple premise, very interesting idea. But instead, what you get, the finished product, is pure crap. Now, the hard thing about Netflix is you can't really gauge the quality or what you're going to expect. You can get a great show or you can get a terrible show. And this show feels like a show that would have aired on like the CW or would have aired on like maybe Fox, and it would have been like a few people would have watched it, but I don't think anybody would have really talked about it. So the problem why this show fails is one, the terrible acting. The acting is atrocious. And I hate to really talk about kid actors, but he is awful. And the mother is just as bad. And none of the stuff makes sense. So that leads me into my second point. The writing in the show is terrible. Just the dialogue, how they deliver their lines, how they speak on stuff. It doesn't even make sense. Like you have one scene where they're like talking about some sophisticated science stuff. And then the next scene, they're like trying to do like a dab. And it's so cringeworthy to watch this show. Like it has no nuance, no like understanding of black culture, nothing that I would make me like want to like this show. It's just bad. And so another thing that I don't really care for, and I think a lot of people were saying this. Now, this next comment is an attack on women at all. But I think that this show would really help if there was more of a male presence in this show. And yes, there are black people in this show or black men in this show, but more like a black father figure for Dion's life. Now, there's a white guy who's like supposed to be like this father figure, but he's so goofy and cartoonish, and he's written in a way that just makes you want to hate him because they make him so cringeworthy. Like he's like he doesn't have like any grit to him or any type of like understanding of how to act like an adult. He acts too much like a man child. And so he's annoying. And then you got Michael B. Jordan, who's like this reoccurring, like Obi-Wan character who keeps coming back to our main female protagonist. And he comes back to her and sees her in dreams and stuff. She keeps remembering him. And he died mysteriously through some like storm chasing because he's a scientist. And they keep driving that point home that he's a scientist. But all in all, Raising Dion is just a bad show. And back to that point about like black culture, it's a show that it feels too much like it's trying to pander to black audiences, all while being acceptable to the mainstream audience. So it's like, we're going to put some black people in here, but then we don't want to make sure we scare off anybody else who might watch it. So we'll have a black mom, but make sure she's light skinned. And I've heard a lot of comments about people saying that they weren't too fond of making Dion's mother a more lighter skinned or more fair skinned woman because in the comic book she's a little bit more darker. So people were mad about the colorism within this show. So most people were already going to cancel this show before it even happened. And then the fact that you don't really have a lot of males that are in this show that are like good for Dion, that thing kind of hurts the show as well. So Dion, it might be something that you would care for, but for me, it's just a bad show, a bad superhero show. And it's kind of like Luke Cage, and Luke Cage was on Netflix too. It's a show that will find its audience, but eventually and inevitably it will be canceled. So that's my thoughts on Raising Dion.